Hello everyone and welcome. Today we are going to be going over our fifth text adventure game, or part five of the text adventure game series, and we are going to be talking about how to create your own monsters. And so if you know games, right, there's like different areas, like for example, the lava area, the cave area, the water area, and each of these areas have different monsters that can randomly appear, kind of like Pokemon, right? So the way they do that is they have like it might not be called monsters, right? But we're going to create a folder called monsters in our case, right? And then within it, we're going to store monster classes. And that's one of the cool things you're going to be learning today. You're going to be learning a lot of cool things actually, but you are going to be learning about, one second. You're going to be learning about how to create monster classes, how to make them have their own attacks. It's going to be great. Okay, so let's get started. You might notice some red lines, and I'll get to that in a bit. But first, let's look at our monster call function. Instead of returning three parameters, which is like the name, health, attack, all of that, we are instead going to call the function mtype with one parameter, the area that you want it to be in. So lava is kind of like our biome or our area, and within that lava area, there are different monsters that can spawn. For example, in the lava area, a lava golem can spawn, but in the abyss area, a gargoyle can spawn, if you remember those monsters from our previous videos, right? And let's take a look at our mtype function, right? So our mtype function basically selects a random monster from the lava or abyss area and then returns that monster. Remember, the monster is an object of the class. It returns that monster to the monster fight. Okay, so now you might be thinking, okay, so if we return monster to monster cove, we're basically only returning one parameter. But this monster fight has 1, 2, 3, 4 parameters. What are we going to do? Well, since we're only doing one, all we have to do is we have to import. Sorry, my mouse has been a bit wacky. Monster, that's it. We're just importing a monster, okay? Now you see all these red lines, right? You might think, oh my god, this is so annoying to change. It's not that annoying. Let me show you a trick. Do Control H on your keyboard. Type in like m name, and then you can replace it with monster.name. And remember, this is the attribute. Monster is .name is an attribute of monster. This monster will also have an attribute of attack. HP, the amount of gold it drops. All of these are attributes of the monster class. Okay, so let's replace all of them. M attack with monster dot attack. M HP with monster HP. And then M gold not with monster HP, oops. Okay. But you get the gist. Let me just change that. P gold equals monster gold. Monster gold. Okay. So now I think we're good. So our monster fight function now relies on the monster and its attributes, whatever monster we pass in. Now you might be wondering, what are these monsters? Well, we could obviously make all of the classes within this Python file, but remember, we want to be organized. We don't want everything in one file. Look at how big this code is already. We had to like group them up into different areas, and it gets really complicated. Instead, what about if we store all of our monster classes in other Python files? How do we access those files? Well, we use an import statement. You can say import. Okay, so first let's create our folders. Okay, so we have a lava area, so we're going to do lava.py, and then we have an abyss area, so we're going to do abyss.py, right? And within them there's nothing there yet, but I'll show you what we're going to add there. Right now, let's just import it. Okay, so we're going to import monsters. This is very important. Monsters dot lava, like this. Okay, and we're also going to import monsters dot abyss. So let's say within this we actually had another folder called stage 1. Like this is all the stage 1 monsters, right? And then we put abyss in here and lava. Okay, sometimes the plugin crashes. Oh, okay, yeah, so sometimes you might see like plugin crash. Just reload the page. But basically, let's say we have monsters and then stage 1 and then the two files. We're going to have to do monsters dot stage 1 dot lava. Hopefully that makes sense. But for now, let's just move these outside because we're not going to do that yet. And we're going to delete that folder. Okay. Now, this is one way to import it, but remember, there are better ways. So, we can import monsters.abyss and monsters.lava. But the problem is, whenever we want to access a class, we're going to have to do monsters.lava.lava golem or something like that, right? And that's really annoying. Instead, we can import monsters.lava as lava and monsters.abyss as abyss. This is basically a placeholder, right? So instead of doing monsters.lava.lava golem, all we have to do is lava.lava golem to access the lava golem monster. Okay? You could make this as L and you can make this as A, and all you'd have to do is L.lava golem. That's it, if that makes sense. So this is another cool way of importing things. And if you want to organize your files, you should always keep your classes in other files and then your main like code, whatever runs in the main file. And that's something we'll get to like way later, but for now you don't have to worry about it. Yeah, so we're gonna do abyss and lava. Now let's take a look at what we're going to do within the abyss.py and lava.py. Okay, so this is the file abyss.py, and I just want to show you this, not the lava.py yet, because it's basically the same thing. And right now we have two classes, and we also imported random, and you'll see why in a bit. And then finally we have a monster list at the bottom. Okay, so you might be noticing two things that are weird. Inside of the monster list there are functions with no parameters. That's a bit weird. Okay. Second, you might be noticing something called static method, this at static method. Let me explain these things. First, basically what we're doing is whenever we init any of these monsters, we need their attack, health, and gold. And of course, we initiate the name. The name is always going to be the same, but the attack, health, and gold will be random. Like, because in games, you don't get the same amount of, gold from each monster. You don't. That's just boring. Okay? Now, we also have a create monster method, and above it there is something called a static method annotation. Okay, what this does, you need to put it directly above the function, and what this does is we can actually call this function using the gargoyle class. So okay, let me give you an example right here. So we're gonna say g equals gargoyle and then give it like an attack, health, and gold. Okay, so whenever we call a method, we're gonna have to do g dot like, let's say attack. Okay, this is only specific to the instance. Remember, g is one instance. We can have multiple. We can have g1, we can have g3, three gargoyles, right? But what gargoyle.createMonster does, so we're actually calling this method from the class itself, gargoyle.createMonster, is we're basically creating a gargoyle and we're initiating it with random numbers, 5 to 7, 30 to 50, 15 to 25. And the cool thing is we're putting these functions within a list. What do these mean? Basically, these act as variables. So you can store, let me give you an example. Yes, okay. So you can store x equals int, right? So you store the int function. So you don't do parentheses, because what parentheses is you're calling the function. But without the parentheses, int is actually a variable. Okay, so this might be a bit confusing, but you can think of it as this: when we call x 45, okay, we are basically doing the same thing as int 45, because x is taking the function name of int. In the same way, we can store these variables in a list. So let's say we want to randomly choose a monster to summon. Every time we encounter a monster in the lava area or the abyss area, we can basically do monster list, right? Okay, hear me out. And then within it, we just choose a random integer from 0 to the length of the monster list, right? So this is basically saying, okay, choose me a random monster from Gargoyle or Void Knight, and we can have lots of other monsters as well. Okay, and then we put the parentheses after that. We are basically calling the create monster method, and this is really cool because this allows us to store functions and variables and call them whenever we want to. Okay, and I'll show you the use for it in a bit. Now, hopefully this makes sense. If you have any questions, make sure you ask. I know this is a confusing topic, but maybe this will make more sense if you go down here to the mtype function. Right here, we are choosing a random monster from the monster list, right? And then we call that function, the create monster function, and then it returns us, so remember, it returns us the Void Knight or the Gargoyle, depending on what we call. And then we return this monster right here, as you can see. We return the monster to here. So now instead of mtype abyss, we get a Gargoyle or a Void Knight. And then we call the monster fight function. So we go all the way up here and we fight that monster, the Gargoyle or the Void Knight. Just if you don't understand, rewind the video. Make sure you understand this, because it's very important that you understand what's going on, how the code connects with each other. Okay. Okay. Hopefully you understand now. One more thing I want to show you before I end this video off is right here. P health minus equals monster attack. The monster attacked, dealing X damage. You have X health left. We don't know how much health. We don't know how much damage. It depends on the monster, right? Well, don't you think this is kind of boring? Because every monster has the same attack. Isn't it cool if, like, for example, a monster does more damage depending on, a random chance? Like, there's a 25% chance of dealing double damage. Or this monster deals more damage if it is below 20 HP. Or this monster has lifesteal, so whenever it attacks, it gains health. Those types of concepts are very great for monster classes, because instead of doing this, we can do monster.attack. Okay, and within it there's parameters. So let me show you what parameters we're going to have. Okay, so basically what we're going to do is we're going to call monster.attack, which we haven't created yet, and it's going to take in the health, attack, and gold. We might not use the player health, player attack, or player gold, but let's say, for example, let me give you an example of why each one would be cool. Let's say the player is below 10 health. The monster deals like less damage if the player is at lower health, because he's like a scaredy cat. Let's say the player attack. Let's say if the player attack is really high, then the monster takes less damage if the player attack is really high. Or let's say we're fighting a goblin. If the player's gold is like above 100, the goblin does like double damage, because goblins love gold, right? These are all reasons why we should pass in all three of the parameters, even if we don't use any of them, right? Okay. Now let me show you an example of how each monster attack can be unique. Okay, so right here, I'm in the abyss, and I'll show you what we've done. Okay, this is a normal attack, right? So we've passed in the player HP, the player attack, and the player gold. First, what we have to do is we have to lower the player health by the self-attack. This is just a normal attack, remember. Then we have to print out what happened, right? The monster attacked, dealing blah 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 damage. You have blah 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 health left. Okay? Then we have to return PHP because remember here, we are setting the player health equal to whatever PHP is. PHP is player health, remember that. Okay? The Void Knight does the same thing. Now let's look at the lava.py. We have a lava golem and a fire spirit. Okay? So I can crit like that. Yeah. Okay. So we have a lava golem and a fire spirit. The lava golem's attack is a bit different because the lava golem's attacks also gain him HP. So we of course lower the player's health by the attack. Then I feel like this is too much life gain, so let's just do 2, 4, 6. The health gain that the monster gets is a random choice between 2, 4, and 6, and then we increase the monster's health by whatever health they gain whenever it attacks. And then we also have a custom print message. The monster attacked, dealing a certain amount of damage, and healing himself a certain amount of health. That's the different part. You have blah blah health left. Now, let's look at another sort of attack, the Fire Spirit's attack. The Fire Spirit has a chance of doing critical damage, a 50% chance. So, we choose a random choice between true or false, right? And if critical hit is true, 50% chance, then we lower the self-attack by 2, so it does double damage. Then we print out the blah 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 has attacked with a crit hit, dealing blah blah damage. And instead of passing self.attack, we pass in self.attack times 2. Or else it's just a normal attack. These are all different attacks that your monster can do. Now let's play it and see if there's any bugs. What is your duo's name? Okay, corpse. Hopefully we get a weapon. Nice. Lava pool to your left and an empty chasm to your right. Let's go left. 9 attack and 28. Okay, let's just send our swordsman. See right here, the fire spirit attacked with a crit hit, dealing 18 damage. 9 damage, so he didn't deal crit hit. Okay, now let's send in our archer. We chose correctly. Let's send in our archer again. We chose correctly, and then finally an archer again, and boom, we've defeated the fire spirit. We've gained 35 gold. So our game looks pretty cool, okay? So make sure that you add more classes, more areas. You need to make sure you manage the complexity of your program because things like this get really complicated. Make sure your indentation, okay, this is a very old thing, but make sure your indentation is really good because remember, if you don't organize your code, you'll get lost and you won't know what you're doing. If you need help with organizing your code, then make sure you ask us because we can help you with that as well. Thanks for watching, and this is basically the end of the text adventure game series for now. I'll see you.